Today's route offers no respite to the sufferers and the stragglers. The final day in the Pyrenees is the hardest. 195 kilometres setting out from Lannemezan, and once the day's intermediate sprint is out of the way after 20 kilometres, the climbing can begin. The second category, Col de Porte d'Aspet, is first up after 57 kilometres, and the altitude, the degree of difficulty and the points on offer increase from there. The first category, Col de la Cour, is just under 1,400 metres. The summit of that climb comes 93 kilometres into the stage. There's nearly 50 kilometres of descent and valley roads before the next climb, so the big favourites will be happy to let the breakaway mop up the mountain points while they wait for the finish. There are 10 on offer for the first man at the summit of a Cat 1 climb, and the next one is the Port de l'Air, just over 1,500 metres at an average gradient of 6%. It's the final climb that will bring the big guns out. The Plateau de Beilles is 15 kilometres of climbing up to an altitude of 1,780 metres. 50 mountain points and a prestigious stage win on offer at the top of it, so the riders out front will be desperate to hang on if they can, but that's likely to depend on how fast the favourites are going once they start. Now, first up today was the intermediate sprint after 20 kilometres. Giant led it out for John Degenkolb as usual. Peter Sagan in green came past him, but roaring up the outside past them both in Lotto red was André Greipel, 33 today, and first over the line with Degenkolb nipping back ahead of Sagan. It wasn't enough for Greipel to take back the lead in the green jersey race, but he has cut Sagan's lead down to 2. Once the road started going up, Alex Dowsett started drifting backwards. So too did Zach Dempster, and both of them abandoned the race before the first climb really got going. Now, there are always anniversaries of varying significance to be observed on the Tour, few of them as sad as that marked by the memorial to Fabio Casartelli, who died following a crash on the Col de Porte d'Aspet 20 years ago. The lead group of riders might not have known exactly where on the climb it was as they passed, but the fans marked their passage with respectful applause rather than the usual shouts of encouragement. Now, in that lead group were 22 riders, including the world champion Michał Kwiatkowski, and 3 top 20 riders, Romain Bardet lying 20th, Joaquim Rodriguez 19th, and the highest ranked man in the break, Jakob Fuglsang 18th at 19 minutes 14 behind Froome. Now, Georg Preidler of Giant Alpecin led the group over the summit of the Porte d'Aspet, while Sky kept control of the main field through the steady work of Luke Rowe and Ian Stannard. Back up front in the break, Lampre's Christian Durasek took the 10 points at the top of the next climb, the Col de la Cour. Then on the Port de l'Air, Kwiatkowski attacked, and although Preidler tried, the only man who could stay with his pace in the end was Lotto Jumbo's Sepp van Marken. Kwiatkowski led over the top, and as the pair descended, the weather started to change for the worse. In the chasing group behind them, Louis Meintjes came off on a corner in the damp, losing his chain and some skin. And the riders were heading towards worse. At the finish on the Plateau de Beilles, there was a hailstorm. So as we join commentary approaching the final climb, it's Kwiatkowski and Van Mark versus each other, the chasing break and the weather. The big favourites are well behind and preparing for their own race to the summit.
Looking at the two leaders making the right turn now. We're getting towards the start of the climb. They've got a gap of 11:32. It is pouring with rain on them, but the crowd as enthusiastic as ever. Take a look at the road ahead, and we're starting to kick up. This is a brute of a climb. There's the signs, 15.98 kilometres to the summit where the finishing line is. And the two reaching it here, Kwiatkowski and Van Mark.
Further down the road and making their way into the Valo, they know they're facing up to a 15.8 kilometre climb. That's around about 10 miles of climbing. They're going to climb up to the high spot of around about 1,780 metres. That's tipping into 6,000 feet in altitude. This is the... Oh, a little bit of a manoeuvre there, and coming into that corner just a little bit too quickly. That was Kerel, and he's left his teammate Bardet in first position. Just watch this, and all of a sudden he realised, I'm not going to get round this if I bank it over, so he has to pull on the brakes. Rodriguez, concentration. Romain Sicard, you know, Romain Sicard has been a rider who's been knocking on the door of a great performance.
So the chase group is now on the climb. They're timed at 1 minute 50 seconds, but there are some good climbers here, but they're going to have to work, Paul, to close the gap on those two front runners. For the peloton, they are now going under 20 kilometres to go. Remember, they're not very far now from the right turn onto the climb, as well as they pick up Ledanu and Jeremy Roy on the right. Well, if we had to have the heavy rain, it's probably come at the best time, because it's all uphill to the finish, and it's not going to cause any problems as far as the roads are concerned. 10% the gradient right now as they concentrate here. The gap is coming down. It's 1 minute 24 now. It's hard to see if they will bring back that gap, because whenever you catch up with Kwiatkowski, he's looking pretty cool right now. Now, Sepp van Mark has cracked here on the climb. He's been gapped, and now Kwiatkowski decided to accelerate and to see if the world champion can win the most difficult stage in the Pyrenees.
There was nothing he could do at a moment like this, Phil. You can't try and nurse your breakaway companion in a situation. You've just got to find a rhythm that you are comfortable with. His body will be screaming out right now to stop the pain that he's going through, but he realizes he's got to keep that pain level right there for as long as possible if he wants to continue to nurture the hope of trying to win the stage. This group of chasers are at 1 minute and 25 seconds. Kirel just turning himself inside out. He finished 10th overall in the Tour of Beijing last year. In the main field, Chris Froome knows that challenges will come as we start to get to the difficult part. At the arrière du peloton, he's got his teammates all the way around him, but he knows to expect the attacks which will come, Phil, from Nairo Quintana. I'm sure that Quintana, maybe he won't be thinking about trying to attack Chris Froome, but certainly he'll be trying to put pressure onto TJ Van Garderen, who is only 17 seconds ahead of him in the overall standings.
This is Georg Friedler here, who was in the break all day and was first over the climb of the Porte d'Aspet. Seems an awful long time ago now, put back into the peloton as they prepare now to make the turn onto the plateau itself. Kwiatkowski, by the way, alone now, has never won a stage of the Tour de France, and he's ridden it 3 times. He's worn the white jersey for a long time, and he never won that either. Here he is. The white jersey he's got on now, though, is the jersey of a world champion. The first Polish and only Polish winner of this title.
Well, just inside of 11 minutes for the main field as they now charge into the small town of Les Cabanes, and that is where the start of this climb is. It comes at 16.5 kilometers to go, so they're around about 1 kilometer away from the start of the climb proper.
10 minutes 24 seconds as the climb has commenced now. Peter Kenyon has got himself to the front to try and control this race for Sky. This is the chase group now trying to liven itself up, because they're still looking for 30 seconds, 1:24 to the leader and about 50 seconds to the second rider on the road. This is a good move. It had to come soon.
Well, they had to make the move very early on, because they've still got to eat into the advantage. You know, when you are the world champion, you've got a fairly big pedigree, and these guys will know that Michael Kwiatkowski is no slouch. He is just getting into his own rhythm right now, and what was interesting to me, Phil, with that acceleration of Jakob Fuglsang, Gorka Izagir was the rider who was actually in difficulty, and he was supposed to be the man. You can see he's disappeared in the dark blue jersey. It's great to see Louis Meintjes there in 4th position. They're going to watch out for this young rider here, because if they drag him up to the finish line, Phil, he's going to be a tough kid to beat. Well, another youngster at the front alongside Peter Kenyon here. That's Bob Jungels, the Luxembourg national champion. He's pacing his man, Bauke Mollema, who had a very good ride yesterday, as we see the big struggling side here of rider Hagedal, number 164, a former winner of the Giro d'Italia. But watch out for him in the last week of the race. And let's not forget, Phil, this is a man who finished in 5th place overall in the Giro.
This is the catch of Sepp van Mark as well. He's gone back now by the chase group. The main field, of course, Sky is proving once again he's got plenty of teammates back around in Chris Froome, and I think we've only got Samuel Sanchez alongside, as we had yesterday, in Team BMC. So
now, Rafael Majka comes to the front. This is the guy who yesterday won the stage, and people said, well, now you're starting to think about winning the King of the Mountains competition. He said, no, I came to this race for one thing, and that was for my man Contador Rodriguez.
He's attacking now, trying to break it up. These are desperate moments. He's got to try and get up to Kwiatkowski. Rodriguez, who had a win on the Mer de Huy, the 2nd day or 3rd day of the Tour de France, and now he's trying to reach the world champion. 10 kilometers to go for the world champion. He has a real chance to win his first stage in the Tour de France. Kwiatkowski goes under the banner, but they're trying to bring him back here. He's being chased now by Jakob Fuglsang, Romain Bardet and Joachim Rodriguez. And there they are, these three riders trying to bring back Kwiatkowski. The gap is down on the peloton too, 9:43 the spread.
Yes, well, they're now getting into a really serious chase. Looking a little bit further down now, we can start to see Mick Rogers' job done for the day. He said, thank you very much. I'll leave it up to Alberto Contador. He's handed over responsibility to Kreuziger and Maschka.
Looking down, it looks as though Quintana's hooked up with the back wheel of the yellow jersey now, so he's in a position to attack Chris Froome, but can he? Number one, last year's winner, Vincenzo Nibali, so far so good. As we go up towards the leader, this is a real turn here by Jakob Fuglsang, but Rodriguez looks as though he's up for the fight. Now, has Fuglsang done too much there? Rodriguez is going to find out.
Well, as I said, you know, the cleverest rider in this group is Rodriguez, and he waits for a move like that. Fuglsang, he really is itching to try and get himself the victory, and the man who just keeps responding, allowing him to make the moves there is Romain Bardet out of the saddle. Amazing to think that this kid yesterday, Phil, had to nurse his body through the stage. He was suffering from heat stroke, and I just remember what a teammate of mine once said, after a bad day in a race like the Tour de France, the next day you could sometimes have a super day.
The chase three behind are now only 23 seconds back of Kwiatkowski, and the chase in the peloton, which is now at 9 minutes, is thinning out rapidly.
Most of the big-named riders are in this group. One man who has suffered, though, is Warren Barguil, suffering from a nasty crash just a couple of days ago, but he's hanging on in there, hanging tough.
Well, I'm not sure how many riders are left between the bunch now. I think about 10 or 11 are between this group and the leader on the road. But it's only Fuglsang, Bardet and Rodriguez who can reach the leader, I think. They're at 34 seconds now. Here they are. But they're attacking each other with the acceleration. It looks to me as though Rodriguez, I thought he was going to go again there, but I think Fuglsang was ready for it.
Well, I think the kind of tactic that Rodriguez will attack, he's in the red shorts there, Phil. He'll just keep a very close eye on the other, say, come on, let's work together. Let us catch the rider in front first before we start attacking each other one by one, because otherwise we're going to slow down on our organisation.
Now, Jens, we've got a situation here where the three chasers don't want to help each other anymore.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. They go, okay, it would need a maximum effort to catch the leader, to catch Kwiatkowski. Nobody wants to do that big pull, because the second you reach the wheel of Kwiatkowski, the other two guys, he's sitting on your wheel, they might just jump off your wheel and attack you. And if you give it too much, you might be unable to follow the counter attack. So it's already a little bit of poker game. So in the moment, I think them three just considering how we're gonna catch him without killing ourselves. Oh, that looks like a strong acceleration here from Rafael Majka.
Well, it's a good one, Jens. You're absolutely right. And now we're trying again. Joachim Rodriguez has put in another acceleration. This is what climbers can do. Now, can they answer that one? And Rafael Majka is doing the same. What he's trying to do here now is to put Contador into a position to attack Chris Froome.
Well, it's put a little bit of difficulty onto Warren Barguil. He's the hope of France. He's been successful in the Pyrenees in this race, but look at this. Now, all of a sudden, Majka's job is done for the afternoon. Rodriguez, at 36 years of age, is trying to put space between himself and the other two riders. He wants to ride across this gap on his own. He knows it's now only down to about 20 seconds the advantage. This is a guy, Phil, who's already got one stage victory under the belt, and the other two are in a spot of bother.
Well, I'll tell you what, this counter-attacking has put them within 13 seconds of Kwiatkowski. Now Bardet has cracked.
Well, Rafael Majka, as all of the other riders of Tinkoff Saxo, they are trying to race Alberto Contador back into the Tour de France here this afternoon. That is Sammy Sanchez, the Olympic champion from Beijing. Well, he's coming across the gap there, Rodriguez.
And it's the biggest danger in that breakaway, trying to reach the world champion. Just 7.8 kilometers from the summit. The man that won at the stage at the Mer de Huy is doing the climb of his life here, and Kwiatkowski's seen him coming. What's he got left to answer this one?
Well, I don't think he'll have much to respond to, Rodriguez. Rodriguez is a great reference when it comes to finishing at the top of mountains like this, but Kwiatkowski is the world champion. He will try and recover a bit further back down the slopes. It's Romain Bardet, number 12. He really wants to get this victory. He keeps looking around the corners. You almost want to straighten up the road to try and see the gap between yourself, but he's been left behind by Fuglsang because Fuglsang has taken flight after the two leaders.
It looks as though he's cracked Kwiatkowski as we go forward. 10 kilometres to go for the peloton as well. And the world champion is now passing it down the ranks because Fuglsang has passed him up there as well. So it's all changed, and this hill is so unforgiving. 7.4 kilometres to go.
Oh, there's the move by Contador.
Oh, well, he's going to bring the lie to my words here because he's going to have a go. And now let's watch the reaction. Richie Porte is going to have to pick it up. The man that won the Tour of Italy and wants to win the Tour de France. This is a serious reversal of form by Alberto Contador. The team said today they would wait until the last climb to see how Alberto was feeling. Well, I think he's giving us his answer.
Well, he is, Phil. He starts the day in 6th place overall. He's looking for 4 minutes and 4 seconds. He's not very far away from Spain. He is a fighter. He's a racer. He will do everything he can to ride himself back into the Tour de France here this afternoon.
Well, he is on his day the best climber in the world. Jens Voigt, what do you think of this?
It's a good attack. It's a really good attack. It's brave, but how long can Alberto keep 500, 600 watts going? Look at the experience of young Richie Porte. He's not even accelerating a single little bit. He's just letting Alberto out there and notching the speed up just by half a kilometer an hour, and I'm sure they're going to bring Alberto back. See, Alberto's already looking back. That's not a good sign. It was a good attack, but almost a boomerang attack. It went out and pretty quickly it came back. But hey, we got to give it to him for trying.
Here, 10 out of 10 for that. And we're watching now the way that it's come up here. Now look at this. Now they're attacking the leader after the attack of Contador. Vincenzo Nibali, the winner of the Tour, has gone from the front of the group. So Richie Porte, who's just brought back Contador, has got to try and do it again.
Well, he doesn't really, Phil, because let's not forget that Vincenzo Nibali is more than 7 minutes behind in the overall standings. And what Jens was just saying a few moments ago is they mustn't panic, Team Sky. They've got to be sensible at moments like this, allow these attacks to come out one at a time, and then slowly, if they can, lift up the pace and try and pull back the deficit.
Jakob Fuglsang here is still riding the road in 2nd place as he continues up the mountain, but Rodriguez is still hanging on at 5.7.
3rd place on the road there. Romain Bardet was put in difficulty, first of all, by the attack of Joaquim Rodriguez, then by the counter move by Jakob Fuglsang, but he's now starting to find his rhythm. And bear in mind, he's racing in France.
Talking of rhythm, this man has found his rhythm too, from losing a silly best part of a minute yesterday, about 4K from the finish. He's now looking like a different rider, and he's been told by his team manager he can go and find himself a new team next year because he's fallen out with Alexander Vinokourov. Maybe this is his answer.
Well, he is a man who's got great class. Vincenzo Nibali, you know, he's only 30 years of age. He's the national road racing champion, but there's no panic yet alongside the Sky train. Alberto Contador, number 41, he made the move. There's Bauke Mollema, number 141. Thibaut Pinot riding in the position that we'd expected to see him in, a rider who was 3rd overall in the Tour de France last year. But this is gusto. This is what the Italians like to call la grinta, the courage, and that's how this man is riding now. He is a great champion. He's the defending champion of the Tour de France.
Valverde is now decided to stretch the legs. It's the only way to break Sky is to use all of the teams, and now it's Valverde, and they've caught Chris Froome at the moment in great difficulty at 5.2 kilometres to go.
Well, he's got the cadence going up high, but he lost a couple of lengths there as he slowly claws his way back up to the wheel of his teammate. And the ease, when you look at the ease of Nairo Quintana's pedaling style, you know, one of the strongest assets I think that Movistar have got is Alejandro Valverde this year. Looks over his shoulder, Phil. In fact, he's going a second time as he tries to come across the gap to Vincenzo Nibali.
This race is showing all the signs that all the teams with leaders have combined to race against Froome on the climb of the plateau. And now the next attack must come from the rider in the white jersey. 5 kilometres to go for Joaquim Rodriguez. 5 kilometres away from his first ever mountain victory in a stage of the Tour de France.
Yeah, well, sadly, Phil, I have have to tell him that that 5 kilometres is still going to take him close to 15 minutes. Look at the face there. You can almost feel the pain written across that face of Joaquim Rodriguez, while it's concentration written into the face of this man who doesn't show any emotion at all.
And there goes Valverde again. No reaction yet from Team Sky. This is another kick from the champion of Spain.
Well, they have to be very, very careful, especially Richie Porte, who made that savage acceleration and actually put Chris Froome into a little bit of difficulty just a few moments ago. And they have to bear in mind, they have to look at the clock, Phil. Bear in mind, 4 minutes is what Alejandro Valverde has to make up in this kind of a situation. But every day that they make moves like this, it'll put pressure onto the shoulders of Chris Froome and his team. And he's caught now and past Vincenzo Nibali.
As the riders now continue to look at each other, Rodriguez is heading up through the rain, and it's still raining at the finishing line, by the way. They've picked up Valverde, they've brought back Nibali, and they're going to throw something else at Chris Froome in a moment, because let's face it, he's got a big lead in the Tour de France. He can afford to lose a little bit of it, and he expected these attacks today. He said so before the start. Well, this man is now only 4 kilometres from the victory now, Joaquim Rodriguez. He gambled early on. He had to catch the lone leader and leave him behind, and the climb levelling a little bit for the moment.
Well, his gap is almost 1 minute over the second place rider on the road, and he can start to feel just that little bit more confident because of the kind of rider that he is. He's not likely to crack in the last 4 kilometres.
Jakob Fuglsang at the moment also, as he continues to try and get a placing at the podium. 3.6 kilometres to go for the leader. If Quintana does not attack in a few moments' time, I would suggest he can't. He must have been listening, because there he goes. Nairo Quintana has launched the attack. He's still got time on his side. Now, what's the reaction? It was clear that Richie Porte was about to crack, and he's cracked. Now it's up to Geraint Thomas to try and keep Froome in this race.
You're talking about a man who is in 5th place in the overall standings. Richie Porte was put right on the limit to doing the pacemaking, but you know, Geraint Thomas is in such incredible form right now, because a guy like Geraint Thomas, he doesn't have the change in acceleration of a pure climber like Nairo Quintana, and he's slowly got the big diesel engine going, and he's nailed back that gap. But watch out for this Colombian climber, because he can go and go and go again.
That's the art of being a climber, isn't it? But look who's left in the group now. Quintana, Thomas, the yellow jersey of Chris Froome, TJ Van Garderen, 2nd overall, Valverde, 4th overall, Nibali, last year's winner, Pierre Rolland, I think it is, and Alberto Contador. Well, it's a battle of the heads of state on the lower slopes here, because one man is way out front now, Rodriguez. 2.5 kilometres to go for Joaquim Rodriguez. His face a picture of pain here, but it's all going his way at the moment. This is, I think, the only man who could reach him now. Fuglsang, he's 70 seconds behind and still living in hope. Of 5 kilometres to go for the leaders of the Tour de France, and they are hitting each other at every opportunity. Sepp van Mark has now dropped from the front, where he had a lead of 10 minutes, to the back of the chase.
Yes, but that man, not really a man for the mountains, a man for the flatlands, and he'll have some stories to tell tonight around the dinner table. Now, Geraint Thomas, who lies in 5th place overall in the Tour de France, is setting the tempo for Chris Froome. Chris Froome has got locked on his wheel there, Nairo Quintana, but this man has certainly been man of the match.
And the storms came as prophesied, and they haven't stopped raining, actually, as they're coming up towards the finish here at the Plateau de Beilles. 2.2 kilometres to go. Joaquim Rodriguez is still looking like a man being drawn to that finishing line. He's suffering, but it's a good feeling he's suffering. He knows he's still riding well.
Bardet is not too very far behind Fuglsang, around about 20 seconds, the difference between them. The situation on the road then is this man, Joaquim Rodriguez, at 110 back to Fuglsang, 130 back to Romain Bardet. Now is acceleration coming from Froome. Quintana locked right onto his wheel, but can he open up the gap?
The brutal acceleration again of Chris Froome. Quintana saw it, but did anybody else have the Contadors trying to get on board? and Van Garderen also trying to react.
Well, Contador has got on board. Froome, I think, had seen the work done by his teammates there, and he jumped past Geraint Thomas. I'm not sure why he felt that he needed to do that, but what he's done is he's isolated himself and also isolated who his major challenges are going to be. Contador is riding better as this tour progresses, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a cheeky little move come from Contador down towards the end.
Well, they're having to repair the damage again now and try and get it back together. But now Valverde said, you started, I'll try and finish it. Alejandro Valverde, fourth in the Tour de France. He launches an attack.
Well, you know, I just question why Chris Froome made that move, because he's isolated himself, and now he's got a situation where he's got two Movistar riders against him. Geraint Thomas is fighting to come back, and Quintana is looking for the move again.
He's chasing everything, Chris Froome. The two Movistar riders, joint leaders of the team, are counter-attacking and attacking. And now it's Quintana, and this time can Chris claw his way across to the back wheel of Quintana?
Yeah, but look at the job that's being done, Phil, a little bit further back by Geraint Thomas. He keeps fighting his way back up here, and as soon as he makes the contact, if he can make the contact here, I think he can come to the front of this group and start doing tempo once again.
Well, they've passed under 4 kilometres to go now. Quintana has been answered. The incredible Geraint Thomas has ridden himself back to the front to try and cool it all down.
I think what he's got to do now, Froome, is just allow Geraint Thomas to do the pacemaking. But you know what? They're going to have to put a noose around the neck of Alejandro Valverde, because he's lining himself up for another move here. Movistar are going to give it to Chris Froome every time they go into the mountains with this two-pronged attack.
This is Bardet here. He's third on the road as they're racing up towards the finish, and we mustn't forget the big day that Joaquim Rodriguez is about to have as he comes up the Plateau de Beilles. There he is, while Joaquim Rodriguez heads under the 1 kilometre to go banner. They've tried everything to dislodge Chris Froome, and they've so far failed. This man in the lead from the 27th kilometre of the race today is the survivor of 22 men up front. He's heading to victory for sure now. Geraint Thomas has got back in control at the head of this race. He's still looking after the man in yellow.
Funny situation, Phil. Geraint Thomas, I keep talking about him with the yellow hat as the yellow helmet as leader of the team classification, is only a single second ahead of Alberto Contador in the overall classification, and yet he's putting his work down for his leader Chris Froome in this situation.
Here's poor old Michael Kwiatkowski, who has now been caught. He's put on a wet top there as well, as he's now seeing. We never thought he would see the yellow jersey once 12 minutes behind him, and not that long ago. The world champion checking out who's in that group, and Geraint Thomas riding absolutely brilliantly. Let's rejoin the man now who is taking the stage here. He has ridden the Tour de France 4 times. As Quintana goes, we can't even show you the winner because we've got to go back to the attacks. This time Quintana goes. Can Chris Froome count on the move? Contador has gone after him.
Well, that was an incredible move again, but you know, Nairo Quintana, Phil, is one of the kings of the mountains. He loves these mountains. He's trained at Boyacá in Colombia leading up to the Tour de France. He sailed around the Pyrenees in the Route du Sud earlier on this month to finish in second place to Alberto Contador, but they've not yet surprised Chris Froome. Chris Froome has responded, and I've got to take my hat off. The man from Wales there is always there present alongside his teammate, G, they call him, Geraint Thomas.
And Pinot has come back. Let's go up to the leader now, because this is the man who wins the day. His first Tour de France, his 3rd stage win historically, never on a mountain like this. Well done to Joaquim Rodriguez. He's had a brilliant day. He comes home all smiles. Enjoying the moment there, Rodriguez. He's won a Mende, he's won on the Mer de Huy earlier this tour. He's got 2 stages. This is the one he wanted. Going back quickly to the 2nd place finisher. This is Jakob Fuglsang coming up towards the line. And a good 2nd place for him.
He was given a free hand by Team Astana. They said, right, we don't have any faith in Vincenzo Nibali anymore. You can be a free hand in the race this afternoon. But Nibali's ridden pretty well this afternoon.
I think there's a lot of people ridden well, but they haven't been able to get rid of Chris Froome, but they certainly hit him as hard as they could. As Fuglsang crosses the line in 2nd place, and it should go 3rd to the renaissance of this Frenchman here, Romain Bardet, at a great 3rd place. Sick as a dog on the climbs yesterday with sunstroke. Now he's third up the Plateau de Beilles. Well done, and the French have got something to cheer at last.
Well, Phil, again, just at 24 years of age, Romain Bardet, he was 6th overall in the Tour de France last year, and he showed that he can bounce back from adversity. We'll watch him again next year.
He'll be looking forward to the Alps next week. Now, we've got the first 3 over. Let's get down and have a look what's going on. Nothing has happened while we've been away, and Geraint Thomas has been the man of the race. He's been the champion for Sky and the champion to survive like this and still do all the work for Chris Froome. This is the rider who crashed. Look at his jersey, and it's going to be... Louis is going to try and take him on, but I don't think it's going to happen. Gorka Izagir is going to run away. That'll be for 4th place. And Louis Minky's here showing to a star of the future. Should be crossing the line in 5th place. 1 kilometre to go. Anybody going to try and take a second? Because they've tried to take time all up the climb without any success whatsoever. I think Chris Froome might be happy to see the back of this stage, but he's come through it with flying colours.
Well, just looking down, there's one or two riders may well disappear out of the top 10, because I haven't seen anything of Robert Hessing for some time, or Tony Galopin, who started the day in 7th place overall.
This is Jan Barter here, still ahead, surviving. What is he, the 6th, 7th place finish, 6th place finisher? He'll be delighted with this. He's such an aggressive bike rider from the Czech Republic, and the Bora Argon 18 will be delighted with that performance yet again. He was in the breakaways the first couple of days of the Tour de France, Holland through Belgium. This is Roman Sicard coming up now.
Well, again, a rider who's finished in the top 15 of the Vuelta a España. I think he'll be happy with his day throughout the Pyrenees, and he still can start to nurture a thought of a high finish overall. Mikel Kirel, the rider from AG2R, I think he too was pretty much responsible for the 3rd place finish on the stage for his teammate Romain Bardet.
Well, he set it up for Bardet, and he still hung on and kept ahead of the chase group as well. And as far as I know, he's crossing the line in 8th place, as we've had a counter move, and it's come from Valverde further down. Every second counts, and he's got to make real time gaps, and Chris Froome doesn't want to give away 1 second of his overall lead, and he's got on his back wheel there, Quintana. This is a terrific power finish by Alejandro Valverde. They'll probably give him 2 seconds on the line over Froome.
Well, it was only 1 in the end, but that was race 2. Race 1 was won by Joaquim Rodriguez ahead of his fellow escapees Jakob Fuglsang and Romain Bardet, with Izagirre jumping Meintjes for 4th. The top 6 at the start of the day were in that yellow jersey group. Hessing and Mollema conceded some time. Galopin and Barguil conceded more. The Joaquim Rodriguez of a couple of years ago might well have won the Tour on a route like this. Instead, he's winning stages and might start thinking about winning the King of the Mountains jersey. He's at home in the Pyrenees, of course, and close enough to his actual home for his children to be on hand to share the victory with him. As good as it was to watch, though, Perito's 2nd stage win of this race did make for a lot of cutting between cameras, because there were multiple attacks going on behind him in the yellow jersey group. Let's hear from a couple of the attackers.
Alejandro, hasta el momento los Sky tiene todo sofocado. ¿Cómo te pareció?
No, está claro que lo tienen todo controlado, pero bueno, hoy hemos estado bastante más cerca que el otro día, y aún queda mucha montaña. No nos vamos a dar por vencidos, hay que seguir luchando. Es difficile, por supuesto che è difficile, però non è impossibile.
Ho sempre sofferto un po' tutto il giorno, ho cercato più di tenere con la testa che con le gambe, ho trovato sempre un po' di difficoltà. Poi nel finale ho visto che, magari pensando di avere un po' di tempo in classifica, di non venire tanto considerato, però quando si è scatenata poi la guerra, allora ho potuto solamente seguire.
So for the 2nd day running, the only change in the top 6 is Alejandro Valverde nicking some time on the line. He's inside 4 minutes of the lead now. Tony Galopin slips behind Robert Hessing, and Vincenzo Nibali rides himself back up to 9th at the expense of Warren Barguil, who drops out of the top 10. Joaquim Rodriguez, incidentally, is up to 15th, but still far enough back to be able to go for stages. He's up to 2nd in the King of the Mountains competition too, behind Chris Froome, who kept that jersey as well, of course, as keeping yellow. Funnily enough, the only time he found himself isolated today was when he put in an attack of his own. He was politely entertaining the idea that might have been a mistake afterwards, but not entirely accepting it.
Possibly. I mean, I think it was, for me, it was a bit more of a tester, just to see where everyone was at, and just to push the pace and just see who actually still had the legs to push on. And But as soon as I heard on the radio that Quintana responded pretty quickly, I thought, okay, this isn't really the day to push on. I'm going to have to just sit back here, and thankfully I had a really strong Geraint Thomas there, just to keep the pace nice and steady and pretty hard, pretty solid all the way until the line, just to neutralise any other attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he in some ways was the story of the day. You know, he's still there in the overall classification. You haven't dropped him yet. You're going to have to do something to get rid of Geraint Thomas.
No, I mean, he's doing some right. I mean, he's been there all the way through the first week, over the cobbles and the crosswinds, and he's up there in the mountains now. So, no, fantastic ride for G.
Now there's more cycling on ITV tonight. Over on the main channel at 10:40, you can see Chris Froome profiled in Sports Life Stories. That's Sports Life Stories Chris Froome, 10:40 tonight on ITV. Now, a good half an hour after the winner, Peter Sagan came in to fulfil his various protocol duties, and by the time the autobus rolled in, followed by the last man, Davide Cimolai, there were almost as many riders heading down the hill to their hotels as there were coming up. All of them, though, were inside the time limit.